Welcome to the Chicago Home Partner Podcast. I'm Samuel Ciochon, along with my co-host Amanda McMillan. We discuss the Chicago real estate market. Our goal is to educate you on what's actually happening out there and how it impacts your real estate goals.
Episode 5, we're here.
We're at it again.
We are. So how is your January kicking in? Start of the new year.
It's the start of a new year, and I cannot believe that we're almost at the end of January.
I know.
It's like
insane.
Insane. How was the beginning of your year for you? How was the end of the year, the holidays, the beginning of the year?
I feel like this year has just been so busy. Everyone is wanting to get out and do things. And I swear to God, every single night has been booked with restaurants and dinners with friends and grabbing a drink with people and just talking. I feel like everyone's really excited this year.
I feel like it's kind of like a breakout year.
It is.
The COVID conversation is finally more manageable and people are seeking connection.
Yeah.
Because typically Januaries for us are a little bit more of I'm burnt out and doing too much. Mm-hmm. And we are obviously diving into an intense market. Yeah. So it's an interesting perspective to hear that you feel like you're out there, you're seeing more people, you're doing more things, you're loving Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just been so fun.
Awesome.
Restaurant week is this week. I literally have a restaurant booked every single night.
That's right. It is restaurant week this week. That's an exciting time.
Yeah. So prefixed meals. I love this week every single year. This week and theater week in February is the best one. So by the time this episode comes out, theater week will start rolling in. It starts February 15th and it goes for the last 2 weeks. And it's $15 and $30 tickets to all the different plays that are going on in the city. So I think I don't know. I just love that.
So essentially you start sleeping like I do because you start sleeping less because between the real estate market kicking in and your social life kicking in, you're at full throttle.
Yes. Yeah. So the bags under my eyes are creeping in. I know. I'm telling everyone, I'm really excited for the first 2 weeks of February so that I can only just focus on real estate and have a little bit less social life.
I don't have that problem alternatively. But no, we came, as you know, we spend the first couple of weeks down and I work remote for the first couple of weeks. It's the time we're in Florida. It's an awesome time for my family because we get to reconnect a little bit more. Once we get back and into spring market, it's, as you know, we're pulled in 1,000 different directions, which are all good ones, but it's a time for us to start the year great. It's a time for me to work remotely, which is fantastic because so much of the first 2 weeks of the year, which helps to lay the groundwork, is our consultation time.
Yeah,
right?
It's planning time.
Who's thinking about doing something this year? What were those conversations that came across from the holiday dinners and all of that? So I'm so excited to kind of jump in because I felt like I've spent the last couple of weeks really reconnecting with a lot of people and hearing about all the exciting plans that they have for this year.
I love that. Well, you have literally just hit the ground running. I mean, your Instagram posts of we're doing photo shoots and you came back and you're all right, we're listing 2 different properties this week. You're going gangbusters. The
market is, I mean, we said this before, right? We said spring market is going to come early. And without a doubt, it's here. Those that are waiting for it to come after Super Bowl Sunday, they're missing the first few weeks of it, right? They're missing the first few weeks of it because it's already here. But this was something that we've been planning, we've been projecting. We had a lot of our clients that have been sitting and waiting for this, right? We took a lot of our photos last year and with people that said, hey, let's just put a little toe in the water and let's kind of get everything ready. And then the minute it starts up, so we're already back listing properties and getting ready to go. And it has been busy out there.
Yeah, it definitely has. I've been going hog wild so far the first 2 weeks.
Totally. So a little bit, I just wanted to hit on a little bit of housekeeping before we first and foremost, thanks so much to everyone that sent in questions. I think people are starting to really like us. They are sending in more and more questions.
I think one of our videos had 40,000 views this last time. That's insane.
I don't know if they came back again, but they came back once. But no, it's the questions are amazing. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
You can DM us through any social media. You can email us at info@chicagohomepartner.com. Keep them coming. They've been great. So we've got great questions today. Yeah. Before we dive into the questions.
Housekeeping. Which is hilarious because we're actually realtors. If you think of it from that.
Da-da-da.
Yeah.
Wow, you went there, Samuel.
Oh my God.
First and
I'm a
foremost,
dog dad. My dog dad jokes kicking in.
homeowners exemptions in Cook County are due by March 1st. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means and who needs to be doing this?
Yes. So if you bought your property in January, like before January 1st, what was it 2021 now? Because 2022 tax bills are coming out. If you bought it that year, then you can apply for the homeowner's exemption. I always say go to cookcountyassessors.org and then you can actually apply for it there. This is great because in the last 2 years with the pandemic, they started taking applications online, which is the best. You used to have to do the handwritten note that says, please give me a discount, and then mail it in. So now you actually can do it online, which is great.
Totally. And what's important to know about that, if you bought a home from somebody that had a homeowner's exemption, there is a strong likelihood that there is one in place already. But don't just rely on that. Check the status. If you don't know how to check the status, reach out to us, reach out to your real estate advisor to check the status to see if you're getting it. And basically the homeowner's exemption is just a little bit of a tax savings on your primary residence if you've been in there for that current tax year. So those are due March 1st.
Yeah.
Cook County.
Yeah, and I think the website actually said that it averages out to be like a $932 savings on an annual basis, average.
I was going to say, yeah, it depends on a price point and a lot of other things, but it's money in your pocket.
Yeah, totally. So we love saving people money. I feel like the biggest thing that we always do, especially like when we go to sell people's property, we look at their past tax bills, and I would say like 40% of our people like don't actually even apply for it. So we have to tell them to go back and do the certificate of errors and at least get some money back.
Yeah, so if you do find out that you haven't essentially done it previously, there is a way to do a little bit more paperwork to go back up to 3 years and get a little bit extra money back. And who doesn't like extra money?
Like a tax refund in February. It's great.
It's huge up for April.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what's the other housekeeping item we need to take care of?
This is housekeeping. I thought it was just an interesting note because we've talked a lot about it. Luxury market in the city is up.
Ooh, it is on fire, and I love it. I love a good, like, beautiful property being sold.
Fantastic. No, it's true. We talked a lot about this at the end of last year in the fact of with inflation doing what it was doing with the talks of recession and people a little bit nervous, is that sophisticated financial decisions are often made in the direction of real estate, hard assets, right?
Yeah.
People like hard assets. And so we started to see the upper echelon start to invest their money more and more in real estate. So now we're coming out. You told me the stat earlier. How many more properties have gone under?
Yeah. So as of this moment, in this time of year, so January, we've had 4 properties sell over $5 million, where at this time last year, it was only 2. Okay. And so this last week, we actually had another really high-end property go under contract. So we don't know like where it's going to close at or anything, sure, but it's at $15 million. It's in 111 Chicago, or not 111, 1 Chicago.
1 Chicago.
One.
I wasn't familiar with
yeah,
that
111 now. So it's in 1 Chicago, which is a really nice like luxury building that was just built. There, I think 22 units have sold out of the 77 there. So I think it's a really exciting moment, and I think the momentum is going to be great for this year.
No, it's a great way to kick it off. And once again, it's that confidence in that luxury market, which we spoke a lot to last year, is typically a very strong sign for people's confidence in our real estate market. So
yeah, I love it.
Okay, well, should we jump into some of these questions?
All right, yeah, and let's jump into our normal programming.
After our normal program. Okay, we actually got a lot of questions and comments on this topic, so we wanted to hit it right out of the gate. Spring market. What the heck is it? When is it? And why is it important?
Yeah, so our spring market is kind of like our hot season. Chicago's a very seasonal city. And so this is kind of like the start of the year, which is great. The start date typically is like the first week of February, so right after the Super Bowl. Again, we were talking about bringing helmets just as visual effects, but didn't do that. But yeah,
I don't do shoulder pads.
What? You don't like the 80s?
No. I lived through them, Samuel.
I was born in 89, like Taylor Swift. So I missed that memo, unfortunately. But yeah, so it is our like busiest time of the year. So, and it also kind of sets a precedent for the year. So
yeah, and I mean, I think the things that I would add to that is that's all really correct. You know, in terms of timing, we definitely say it starts right after February 1st, first week in February, typically runs through the end of June. It's the time that we have the most amount of homes on the market, so the most inventory as well as the most choice. But we also have the most competition. The most buyers are going to be out there as well. A lot of agents, we're not so much this way, but a lot of agents are very front-loaded on the year with the amount of business we do. We have a lot of strategies using the back end of the year too.
totally.
But it is the time that tends to be the busiest. We do see that pricing tends to be at its highest during that as well, and that the market can be, depending on the market conditions, most competitive.
Yeah.
So,
and we're getting into that already. So, but I mean, like the other thing also to mention is the last couple of years, the start of the spring market is February 1st, but the last couple of years, we've seen it actually creep into January for people trying to get a jump start on it prior to it getting really competitive. So, because again, if you go under contract in January, you typically don't close for 30 to 60 days. So you're still closing in March or April if you need to, but
no, that's important. I mean, we've
that's
seen
what
it
we're seeing right now
since the start of COVID, that every year, and this is what we were talking about last year, is that the market started up by the second week of January. So there wasn't really this slow roll into it. Sure, it's not instantaneous. It doesn't happen like that. But we go from feeling like, okay, prep, and now we're doggy paddling like heck to keep our heads above water. Wait, we're at 25th and 26th hour in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, the why is it important? I think the thing that's important about spring market is it really depends on what somebody's trying to accomplish.
Totally.
If it's a seller that comes to us and says, I want to net the highest sales price and that's my biggest priority, spring market is probably their time. If it's a buyer that has a very unique need and inventory is really important to them, once again, that's probably pretty important. Now, on the flip side, if it's somebody that's looking to maybe do something in a little bit of a softer market, that might be a different strategy at a different time of year. But for the people that are looking for the most amount of inventory or trying to get the strongest pricing, we tend to see that then. And we also know a big fuel in this is that because we have a lot of our, especially first-time buyers coming out of the rental
leases
market,
are coming up.
Leases are up end of April, end of May, and that is a big driving force of this.
Yeah.
As well as the final piece that nobody ever wants to spend their glorious summertime months with us.
Yeah, I think festival season comes in and they're like, I just don't want to. I need to like, right now it's great because again, February and March, it's crappy outside and nobody wants to be outside. So you're online on your computer and that's like, I mean, people are online shopping, so they're shopping for houses.
As we say, it's our spring market, but it certainly doesn't feel like spring.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right, the next one. Ooh, I love this. So you've both previously mentioned that you have business coaches. Why and is it helpful?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm going to even go farther than that. I am a person that has a lot of coaches and trainers in my life.
We've all been athletes, so like we know. Yeah, exactly. It's everything.
It's true. I grew up in a sports household, right? I grew up playing sports. I think most people know I still to this day am a very competitive horseback rider, equestrian. And I have coaches in all aspects of my life, whether it's my personal, my business, my horses, whatever it is. I have found that by aligning myself with other people, especially people that have an extreme amount of expertise in certain things, it really helps me to perform better. As I always say, I don't believe in perfection. I don't believe in being the best. I have no desire to be that. But what I really try to do every day when I wake up, I want to become the best version of myself. Yeah. I want to be able to constantly feel like I am moving forward. I sometimes say, I want to go forward, never straight. Forward sometimes has a lot of curveballs and a lot of loops, but by having a coach, it really helps me in a lot of different aspects. Obviously, there's some accountability, though most people will know I'm an incredibly accountable person. So it's not just that for me. For me, it's having somebody come in from a third party perspective, look at it with a very different eye set than I do. Most of the coaches that I work best with are not wired like me. Most of them come from a little bit of a different aspect, so they can say, hey, did you think about it like that? And I'm going to go, no, I did not. But that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. So they allow me to really open up my mindset. And obviously that's a huge advantage in business, right? Because it shows me things that I'm not going to think out in my own, but it's also true in my life, in my relationships, in everything. I'm a huge advocate of it, of aligning yourself with people to help you find that best version of yourself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Well, we actually met through our business coach. That's how we partnered up 2 years ago, which was
once upon a time,
which was really great. And honestly, having a coach, they were able to see where our strengths and weaknesses were, and we're able to be like, hey, I think you guys would complement each other very well. So having that external third-party person to kind of do that is great. But I just think, we've been in coaching forever, but I just think you want to do better for your clients, and I think they deserve a better experience. And especially since 87% of realtors don't make it past their 5 years, we want to run this like a business, and we also want to make sure that we're being consistent as best as possible. And so a lot of that is better systems for our clients and working through a lot of that stuff.
No, I think that also aligns a lot with you and I share some very similar values when it comes to education.
Yeah.
Right? Coaching and education, in my mind, go hand in hand, because it's one thing for us to say, hey, we've gotten to a point where we're at in our careers where we know so much business is going to come. We know we do it well, and we could just kind of sit here and coast.
We could be idle.
We could be. It shared me. Idle. No, we could. Absolutely. We could be idle and we could have a successful career moving forward. But both of us are so wired to want to be better, to do it better for our clients, for the people in our lives, right? As I always say, I want to, at the end of the day, be able to kind of go to bed at the end of the day and say, hey, you know what? I put my best effort forth.
Yeah.
I made some mistakes. I'm going to improve on them tomorrow and keep going.
Yeah.
Makes it interesting.
It does. And the other thing that we like about it is just the networking with other real estate agents, even around the country, because our clients move in and out of the city. And so we get to network with the best real estate agents in the country that have a very similar mindset that we do. And again, use that to improve our systems, and then B, also place our clients with other agents in other cities or other markets that we don't have expertise in and can't help them, but at least we can put them in somebody else's hands that can cater to them at a similar level that we do.
No, and I think you hit so many great points in there. we believe so much in collaboration, right?
Yeah, even in the suburbs.
Jim Saunders he was the chief solutions officer for Yahoo many, many moons ago, back when I got into the industry. He has gone on to have a very, very successful career. He wrote a book, Love the Killer App. Now, this book was written probably 20 plus years ago. You've had to have heard me talk about this.
No.
That means you weren't listening.
No.
Very possible, though.
Maybe a little.
Amazing book, because this book was written before really the smartphone, before there were such things as apps. And the whole book, it really changed the way that I live my life and work my business, because it talked about how previous generations really went in and talked about the whole sales idea of the sharks and the barracudas. This is my business. I don't want you to be a part of it. I'm not going to share with you because you're my competitor. His projection was that we were going away from that. That collaboration was really the key to our success. And if we work together, there is a bountiful amount of business for us, or whatever we're talking about in life. Yeah. It's not a limited supply. It's plentiful. And if we collaborate together, you and I can do so much more together. And so we've really taken that into our businesses. And you're so right. When we talk to other agents in other metropolitan areas, or maybe something really remote where they're doing something differently, we're able to bring that back into our business, which the coaching on a national level has really been able to give us that, as well as the ability to put our clients in best places, right? I always tell my clients, if you are moving somewhere else, I obviously can't lead your charge. I'm happy to be your sounding board, and I probably know someone really great in that market that's going to take good care of you.
Yeah, I love it.
I like that question. That was a fun one.
I know. All right.
Okay, back to spring market.
Yeah, we had
We had a little deviation. Should we expect the return of a lot of multiple bids this spring? And if so, what should we know about them in the process?
Yeah, so this year has already gone gangbusters. We've put 2 properties under contract this month, and literally both of them have been in multiple offers. So, I mean, and they're in different neighborhoods too. It's not like just, hey, we're only in Lakeview and Lakeview is just going gangbusters. It's like kind of all over the city, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I would say we're going to see a lot of multiple offers this year. I mean, the one that we did yesterday had 11 offers on it, and then the other one that we had was 5 offers. So I mean that's a lot of people, and our open houses have been really busy as well. Like, you're seeing like 15, 20 people through open houses. So I think it's going to start.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we talked a lot about it, is that inventory is still going to be an issue this year, right? We know that. It's going to be an issue for a little bit. And if we don't have as many homes, then it naturally provides
more
the
competition
possibility for more competition. We also know that our Q4 was very quiet on a lot of our markets. And so that means that not that people didn't want to buy and sell there, they were just a little hesitant because of what was going on in the world. So those people that are finding more confidence in the market now are kind of stockpiling into here. So our demand is going up. Our inventory is still down. We know that that's going to be an issue. That is the breeding grounds to have that. Now, I tend to think that this time of year can be a little bit busier because, right, we're still waiting for some of our inventory to hit in that. So I agree. And maybe this is just a hope. I don't think it's going to be quite as competitive as last year. I think we will balance out a little bit in it. But I do think that to go into this market saying we're not going to see any, I think that's got blinders on, and that's going to add for a lot of disappointment. I think what's important to understand about the process, kind of shifting gears a little bit, there's a few different ways for people to handle multiple bids. I would say most often what we tend to see is most sellers will give every buyer an opportunity to put their best foot forward. There are some deviations of that. Some will just negotiate with some. If they get a really, really outstanding offer, they may just go move forward with that. They may use one against another, but most people will say, hey, put your best foot forward.
Best and final
by a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And it's a hard process to be a buyer in.
I feel like so typically when they do best and final, it's kind of quick. And so we're having to make quick decisions, which sometimes is a little bit difficult.
Pressure.
It's pressure. And so it puts a little bit of a strain on people. I think the one thing about multiple offers that we do have to talk about is if it's in a multiple offer now, there probably means that there's a lot of compelling items in that house. And so similar when to go sell it, we say, hey, those compelling items are still going to be there. Because a lot of people want to shy away from a multiple offer situation because they don't want it to be competitive.
We have never, I'm going to speak for you in this. You and I haven't had this conversation, but I'm going to speak on your behalf. No client has ever come to us and said, I'd like to get into a multiple bid.
Totally.
Ever. Right? Because the reality is in multiple bids, homes are going to sell for a bit of a premium. But as Samuel, you just said, it's selling for a premium because it's a compelling property. And, there's a lot of naysayers out there that say, oh, I don't want to pay a premium for this or that. People sometimes lose sight of their objectives, right? Some people don't have the luxury of time. And so, I have clients that come to me all the time and they say, oh, well, it's a little competitive now. Should I wait until August to do something? Should I wait till a later time? Well, if their timeline allows that, then perhaps that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Assuming that they're not looking for something very, very specific, so there might not be as much pressure on it. But before I've had clients say, well, what if we move into something different so we don't have such a timeline, and then we do this double move, and then we do this? Well,
but that costs a lot of money too. I mean, like
money. So sometimes, and it's funny because some of the naysayers are going to say, oh, those real estate agents are just talking about paying premiums now. Sometimes paying a premium in a 30-year mortgage, which tends to not be that much of a difference, is a better decision than accumulating a whole lot of costs by doing temp housing and a lot of additional moves.
Yeah. Totally.
So it's obviously, and the other thing I think that's really important for people to know, the best price doesn't always win the home.
No, we've won a lot of multiple offers, just not even being the best price.
That word we come back to all the time, strategy.
Yeah. So what are a couple of the strategies that we can use for multiple offers?
Absolutely.
What are some of our back pocket things?
Our back pocket things.
We won't tell all of our secrets.
collaboration. I'm fair. If somebody wants to use them, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I'd say one of the ones that we have a lot of success with is the whole idea of a rent back. A lot of times if somebody's selling something, they're buying something else, moving somewhere else. And obviously buying and selling at one time can get very complicated.
Well, also in this market, a lot of the time sellers, because it's competitive, aren't going to accept a home sale contingency. So for the seller, it's an advantage because they can sell their property, they get the equity out of it, and then they can live in the property, sometimes rent-free, sometimes they pay rent, but at least it gives that, again, talking about do you move multiple times?
It puts them in a better position.
Yeah.
So the rent back idea has been something that we've relied a lot on over the last couple of years when it got really, so basically the sellers are closing. We're closing with them. We're allowing the sellers to then live in the property for whether it's 2 weeks or up to 60 days is the threshold.
Yep.
Sometimes that's for a determined rent. Sometimes to make an offer more compelling, that is rent free. To do that, that's one of the things that we've had a tremendous amount of success with. Now, obviously, there's some other ones. Do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. So one of the ones that we do pretty frequently is as is. Now, I actually was having a conversation with a home seller who bought a property last year and did an as is property and also waived the inspection, which again, we never want to do. And he moved into the property and he was talking about how the plumbing was all messed up. And so now he spent like thousands and thousands of dollars. As is does not mean that you're waiving the inspection contingency. And we as real estate agents never suggest that. We always say, hey, we're going to do it as is. What that means is we can still do the inspection. We find items that are going to be wrong with it so that we can strategize a budget going forward or know what's wrong with the property going into it.
Basically know whether or not there's anything really major.
Not that you're going to move in the house and then you're going to move in and there's going to be issues. Yeah. So that's always a good thing. I know a lot of people have issues with as is just because they're like, oh, well, what happens if something comes up? Now, again, that inspection contingency allows you to back out of that contract so there's always a safety net, which is kind of like the good thing about it. Anything else?
Absolutely. I mean, there's other things that we've done. A lot of it comes back to some of the mortgage products that we've talked about. You know, most of our clients are cash. Cash can be king in this type of situation, but mortgages are a big aspect of it as well. We've worked with a lot of our clients in this type of environment to get fully approved, meaning we can write a stronger offer and basically said their entire application has been submitted. All we're doing is waiting on a property. That means we could write a shorter contingency. Sometimes we can waive components of it. A lot of times, especially when prices get bigger, we do what are called appraisal waiver contingencies or an appraisal gap.
That has been the luxury, like beautiful word of the last year.
Right. So basically what it is that, you know, and let's just say it, if a property is on the market for $500,000 and people are competing on it and the prices are going to $510 or even $520 sometimes, an appraisal waiver or an appraisal gap addendum basically means that the buyer is going to stand behind their offer. So what that means is if the appraiser comes in and says, oops, I can, you know, your price is $515, but I'm only going to give you $510 on the appraisal, that the buyer in a more traditional setting could try and negotiate that amount or try and do something a little bit different. They're kind of saying, hey, I'm giving you this offer and I'm going to stand behind the number.
So a little context, an appraisal is a third-party company that comes in and gives one final number. Yes. They're looking, so when we run a CMA for a buyer, we're looking at a threshold, right? So we have, hey, the property is worth $500 to $510. That's a range. Yeah. An appraiser is only going to give you one final number. And so that has to match that purchase price that you're buying it at. Yeah. And so that's what you're talking about with the gap.
Yes, very true. So that we see a lot because especially, you know, I always tell my sellers when I've got really big numbers, but then they put an appraisal contingency in there, I was like, to me, that's not as valuable because they're just going to come back and say, well, the appraiser said this, so this is all we're willing to pay. So that's another meaningful thing that we're going to do. And the rest is just really kind of reducing the amount of contingencies, shortening contingencies, seller timelines. I mean, there's a lot of ways to sweeten the pot. And the last piece is, and we just got a big win on this. The last piece is
being friends with everybody.
Our relationships. Yes. We work hard to have good relationships with everybody in this industry. A, because that's just how we like to perform our business anyways. But B, it is in our client's best interest.
We just won both of our multiple offers due to the relationships that we have with the two agents. I mean, it is great because, again, you don't always have to be the best one, but you can squeak forward or
Well, the story
they're
on
willing
the second
to
one.
Yeah, they're willing to work with us, right?
We lost the second one. We lost it. We were called. We got the call to say, we wanted to work with you guys, but you weren't quite there. The conversation then escalated. We jumped in to say, what could we have done differently? How could we have done differently? Just let us know so that then we can have another call with our client.
Yeah.
And when the client found out that it was a small change to the date and a small change to...
When we talked with the agent, it was, the wheels started turning.
Yep.
And we're like, we can...
Oh, you mean we just didn't text and email them? We had a conversation.
So when we were asking the following details, that's when it kind of clicked in our brains of, hey, this actually would work for our client. We just didn't do it in the initial offer, but we could do it
because we didn't have all the information.
Yeah, exactly. So
we ended up winning that property, which felt fantastic. And it always feels even a little bit better to know that we were part of the driving cause to do it, right? We want to see all of our clients succeed, but when we know that happened, it feels good.
I slept really well last night.
I'll sleep better once it's all signed and done.
Yeah.
Just who I am. But yeah, I mean, the relationships are very, very true. And it's not just the agents. It's who's the attorney, who's the inspector, who's the lender. If I see a lender that is a big red flag for me, the first thing I've got to tell my clients is, this lender makes me a little bit nervous. This agent makes me a little bit nervous. I've had them cancel a lot of deals on us. Those are conversations that are absolutely part of making a final decision. It's not just the best offer. It's the best offer that's going to hit the finish line in the best means possible.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
all right.
Moving on.
This one. Okay, so again, going back to the multiple offer situation, this conversation came up was love letters to sellers. So
this is for Valentine's Day, isn't it?
Yes, Valentine's Day, love letters.
So you and I differ a little bit on our thought process on this. So
we differ a lot.
So what we're talking about here is a lot of times in the past few years when situations get competitive, is that sometimes people like to accompany their offer with a more personalized letter.
Yeah, so it's not just like a contract. It's not just numbers. It puts a face, not a face, but a like personality behind it.
Totally. And this has been a major issue of discussion over the last few years.
Not even just amongst us, like amongst like the realtor association, just because again, it goes back to fair housing, which is why we've kind of like started shying away from them within the last year. But yes, prior to that, we were like, yes, do it. We were even starting to do video love letters just because everyone was writing a letter. So we were like, how the hell do we differentiate ourselves? So we were like, just record a video, just say how much you love the property and why you want it and who you are so that you can connect a little bit more. But
so my thought process on it is this, is I have absolute respect for the concerns related to them. I have total concern with making sure that there's no level of stereotyping, prejudice, or anything of the sort. Everyone that knows me knows that's a really, really strong topic for me. That being said, a contract and a piece of paper is very cold. And part of this process, as we've said, it's not necessarily about making us like that person better, but as an agent, part of it is understanding their commitment to the property. This is a market. These competitive markets is when people are very, very quick to write offers
and flighty,
very quick to cancel them.
Yes.
Right?
Again, going to the finish line.
As I say to my sellers, if the market goes in the direction that we're expecting it to, it's going to be relatively easy for me to sell your home. The hardest part of my job is going to be able to pick from the 1, 2, 3, 10 offers that we have to pick the person and the team that is committed to doing what they're doing and committed to seeing us through the end, right? Because selling a second time is very difficult and very hard. So for me, those love letters, if done appropriately on a seller side, can give me a little bit more insight to give the best advice. Now, from a buyer's perspective, I think that there's a way to tiptoe around some of the ugly aspects of it.
The fair housing issues.
Fair housing, right?
So don't bring up your race. Don't bring up like anything like that.
Correct. But I think so for example, we had one that we just did, and the important part for me and her presenting is that it's in a little bit of an unknown neighborhood.
She was like, I'm a pillar of this neighborhood.
She is a pillar of the neighborhood. She works at the public school district in the neighborhood. It's not the most glamorous of public school districts. She thrives for that neighborhood, and it's a neighborhood that not a lot of properties come up in. So I thought it was important for the seller to just kind of understand that this is somebody that is committed to that property, because she is a teacher.
Committed to the neighborhood, committed to the community.
Because that commitment, when you're looking through 11 offers going, who's the flaky one, who's the not flaky one, to me, that's going to show it. And that, I mean, well, it didn't work the first time.
Didn't work the first time, but it worked
the second time. So that's why I think from a seller side, I like taking them. I typically will show them to the seller after we've made decisions on all the offers. So
got you.
I'll say, let's look at all the offers. Let's look at everything.
This is the
make some decisions, and I'll say, here's these that you can read after that. So they're not part of the decision-making process for that.
That's actually a really great way to do it, because I don't think we like laminate it to the front page of the contract, like with us. So the seller has to read it.
Yeah. No, I typically will keep that to a secondary phase of the decision making, so that they understand it and they're really looking and making the decision off of the offer
from a financial standpoint, and then adding the personal
and that's the support for certain.
It's awesome. All right, next one.
Okay.
February is always our shortest, however, our longest winter month. I disagree. I think it's March.
Well, this person doesn't agree with me.
I completely, it's totally different, thought processes. But any tips on how to survive winters in Chicago outside of leaving for Florida for 2 weeks in January?
Well, it's funny for me, because February is my hardest month. February is the month for me. I shouldn't say hardest. It's the month that I just feel like I need to get through. And so I guess luckily it's less days. It's the month that I think in March is still a tough month, weather-wise, of course, but there's a glimmer of hope, right? We'll have that 50-degree day. We'll have that.
Just like that one random day.
Totally. And it's like, oh, we're on the backside. Like, we're on the back nine of the golf course. Tips in terms of surviving for winter. This is a multitude of different questions at once.
I'm literally going to say wear 5 layers of long underwear.
So whether or not people that know me best know that I am the spokesperson
of being warm.
High-end, good quality long underwear under my skirts, under my suits. Every time you see me, if it's under 50 degrees, I have some layer of long underwear on.
You break them out in like October.
I do. I don't do cold. So for me, when I look to how do I get through the winter months, it's a couple different things. I absolutely think, and maybe it's not 2 weeks, I think that if you can get out of town for the smallest little tidbit, it
breaks it up.
Right? Just even a weekend away, somewhere warm, somewhere you get some vitamin D. The gray is always what gets me the most. So something like that. I also, for me, it's really about kind of looking to project and get ahead in the year. A lot of planning. So a lot of my January and February is obviously jam-packed with real estate, but when it's looking at more personal stuff, I want to plan stuff. I want to say from simple housekeeping type things, right? Spring cleaning is a huge thing for me. Like, start throwing out all the kids' toys and moving things around and trying to refocus on some of the stuff that over the holiday season got neglected. So I think it's about trying to put together some really good to-do lists on all levels, personal, professional, reaching out to people that I haven't connected with as much, kind of using that time to almost distract you from the fact that it's not a time that we can just be outside as much. But I also think getting into some sunshine, or go the other way, embrace it. Go just get out of town a little bit. The hardest thing about the cold weather in Chicago for me is it's just not as much stuff to do in it, right? I don't mind cold weather. It's just one of those things that when it's a little bit more of it makes things difficult. Like, we're going to get a snowstorm. I know that the commute's going to be a little bit longer, but trying to fill your days and things with a little bit more productivity, refocus it versus the kind of the little bit of negative on that, or pick up maybe a new hobby. I know there's a lot of great things going on in the city, and we were talking about.
I just started improv at Second City, so that's filling some of.
We were talking about the soccer dome earlier over off of off of Addison.
I think I'm going to start taking scuba lessons. There's a place over on Western and California and Addison, I think, that is similar to the soccer dome. But I think I'm going to take that, because when I go to the Canary Islands in May, I want to go scuba.
No, there's a lot of things to do. So what are the things that you do to kind of get through the winter months?
Yeah, so I'm
Binge White Lotus.
No, not binge White Lotus. No. I've already done that. That was my holiday theme. No, so I do like getting out of town. I like taking a ski trip every year. That's typically like what I've done every year for the last handful of years. I just like being outdoors. So like getting outside is really good, especially like if you're walking your dogs or something like that. I think like the statistics are like you need to be outside at least for like a 30-minute walk every day so that you like don't get the blues during the winter.
Yeah.
So that's always important. I don't know. Again, theater week gets you through February because you're like, all right, all the plays are going on. Yeah, so there's a lot to do in the city of Chicago, especially even during the winter, that I don't think, like in the summer, yes, we have the festivals and all of that stuff. But, I mean, we have restaurant.
You just have to look a little bit harder for it.
Yeah, you have restaurant week. You have, like, you're doing more indoor stuff. So you're, like, going to comedy shows. You're going to theater. You're going to restaurants and bars. And you're, like, still trying to socialize as much as possible, I think.
Well, and I think kind of a great reminder on this is, right, we're coming off of a few really funky years.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point to remember that we've got this great city at our disposal, regardless of the time of year.
Yeah, we love Chicago.
Love Chicago.
The one trick that because I kind of do get seasonal depression as well with the gray. Yeah. So like days like today where it's like a blue sky, you're like, ew.
Yeah.
But I have a little therapy light that I bought like a couple years ago at Sharper Image, and it really boosts your mood.
You're like the third person that's told me that. They said they're great.
Yeah, you just have it on your desk. So while you're working at your computer, you just put it on for like 30 minutes a day. It's similar to going outside. It's that vitamin D. I think it's something to do with like your eyes. I don't know. It works. I love it.
Medical advice from Samuel Ciochon. Yes. No, I've had quite a few people tell me about that and that being a real changer for them because we all know that it's more the gray that gets us than the cold.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the blue skies, the temperature drops and I'm like, I'll have it as -5 degrees if it's a blue clear sky.
Right.
And it's not
true.
It's amazing.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, this is gosh, this one will take some thought process. What neighborhoods do you see being some of the hottest in Chicago in 2023?
Yeah. So this is always like a question we get kind of like all the time is like, what's the next hot space? Totally. I feel like in the previous years, it's always been like the Northwest Side or West Loop or something like that. I'm really liking kind of like the South Side. I think that's like a really good opportunity. I've done a couple transactions in like Bridgeport, McKinley Park, Bronzeville. I think like there's really good opportunities down there. I think the city is kind of just moving in that direction. Like especially like now that they're like incubating things in that neighborhood. Like Bronzeville just got their winery, like their first like African-American owned winery in the city, which is phenomenal. And so I think like there's just more like
there's a lot of pulse.
Even at the end of like the South Loop, like the entertainment district, like Motor Row has like blown up in the last couple of years. And so there's just more to do down there. And the prices are still really great. And land's cheap, so you're getting like new construction. Like there's just opportunities. So I like that. I still like the Northwest Side. I mean, obviously Portage Park and like Jefferson Park are always like really, really great.
And good statements.
Yeah. So I think like those neighborhoods are going to do really well.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, what do I think is going to be hot this year? I think what started last year, which I think is going to continue to boom a lot because of an inventory issue, is going to be Avondale. Avondale is one that last year... You ask people 5 years ago about Avondale, and they're going to say, wait, wasn't that in a 1950s sitcom Once Upon a Time? But Avondale is a neighborhood that obviously has seen a lot of attention starting last year in the single-family realm.
We had a lot of multiple offers there last year. And
Logan Square, little kid sibling, so to say. But I feel like they're really starting to identify on their own. There's been a lot of great restaurants that have moved into the neighborhood. Awesome transportation.
I love that little pocket on Addison, like just north of Addison, like where the highway is.
All those east of Elston or west of Elston.
Yeah, like with all those little bungalows and like the boulevard streets, like they're just like 2-block long little boulevard streets. You're like, where did these come from?
No, for sure.
But it's like so cute.
Yeah, that's a neighborhood that I think is really gonna do well because they're starting to get that creep of the commercial, so to say, right? The demand started to pick up. The commercial is going to come in. It's got good transportation. It's got a lot of things going for it from that perspective. I think kind of even looking up to Irving Park is a neighborhood that I actually think is going to continue to grow. Old Irving has obviously always been very, very popular. A little bit east of that has done well over the years, but I've never felt like it's got really its pulse. Part of that was based on kind of the transportation could be a little bit more difficult from there, but that's a neighborhood that I think that is going to do well. I think this could be a big year for Humboldt Park. That's a neighborhood that I feel like it takes 2 steps forward and then takes a step back. Yeah. But I think this year really East Side, I think, will continue to thrive and could do really well from that perspective because we just start to see some things really go into it. And then on the North Side, I think Edgewater is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think Edgewater, and I also want to kind of say West Ridge.
West Ridge.
I think like West Ridge, like just the pricing has kind of like skyrocketed within the last little bit. And I think it's like the last unsettled neighborhood on the North Side. Also, they're putting in that metro station at Peterson. And I think that is going to have just like really great appeal for that neighborhood just because transportation outside of the Red Line, which is on the lake, it allows people to move a little further west.
Totally.
So,
okay, so if you had to just pick one neighborhood out of everything we just had, what is your go-to for your hottest neighborhood of 2023?
I'm gonna say Edgewater, West Ridge. I think
that's 2.
Oh yeah, okay, never mind. Let's say West Ridge.
Hot West Ridge.
Let's say West Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get behind that. I'm gonna go with Avondale. I felt like the surface was scratched last year.
Yeah.
The attention was a little bit drawn, and I think this is its year to really shine.
I love that.
So.
Hot neighborhoods.
Hot neighborhoods. Is that one of those things that we're going to judge ourselves at the end of this year, too?
No.
Okay. Well, I think we wrapped that up for today. We got through all of the questions that we were planning on it.
Yeah, we did.
We made it. We made it through another podcast. We're still friends.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good year. I'm really, really, really excited about it.
No, I
think like the recession keeps on coming up, but I feel like even the recession talk is starting to kind of like fall a little bit more. So I think from that standpoint, I think there's going to be some good things that come out of this year.
I think just to wrap it up, I think the thing that I'm seeing, and gosh, I sure hope some of our education has been helping people, is I think people are really remembering that real estate is that hard asset and that they're understanding whether it's something that they live in or they invest in or whatever the case may be, it's a necessity and in an unstable environment, right? And if the last 3 years have taught us anything, they've taught us that there is a lot of uncertainty in everything that we do, but that real estate tends to be something that in the Chicagoland market, I wouldn't want to be advising in other markets right now, but in the Chicagoland market, we have a lot of confidence in it just kind of keeping even. And that's something that it's great to be advising in a market where we can really say that. Obviously we've seen a lot of different markets, but it's great to be a part of a market where we can have confidence in what we're doing and know that our consumers, regardless of why they're looking to invest in real estate, are really at a point where it could be beneficial to them.
I love that. That was very, very positive.
I like to think realistic, but
yes, it was very realistic as well. It was very sweet. Chicago is our city. We love it.
I would say sweet is usually not the word used to describe me, but until next time, Chicago.
Until next time.